Anya Dar is 70 and has rented this home for the last 19 years. But since last summer, she and her husband, she says, have been served with 2 eviction notices, the most recent 2 weeks ago. And they are struggling to find anywhere new they can afford. How are you going to feel about having to leave this place?
Well, obviously it's been our home for 19 years. We rely on our local friends and neighbours for support because we don't have any family. And it's going to be devastating, basically. It's really beyond my worst nightmares of what could happen to us in our old age.
There are thought to be 11 million tenants in England, and how landlords can evict them is now central to what the government claims is a once-in-a-generation set of reforms on renting. Michael Gove, the Housing Secretary for England, was meeting a tenant in London this morning. He's introducing a bill which would abolish what's called no-fault evictions. That's where a landlord can remove a tenant without having to justify why. It's already ended in Scotland and has long been campaigned for by the Renters Reform Coalition, of which the community union Acorn is a member.
We're really pleased and delighted that this bill is finally coming forward. What this bill means is that no-fault evictions will be scrapped, and that will give tenants the confidence to stand up for their rights more, to complain if they're living in a house which is unsafe. Because at the moment, a lot of tenants are worried about making complaints because they're worried they're going to be kicked out. But we're going to be scrutinising this bill and fighting it at every level of Parliament to make sure that there aren't any loopholes landlords could exploit.
Among other proposed reforms in England, it will become illegal for landlords to have a blanket ban on families with children or tenants receiving benefits, and landlords will have to have a good reason to stop a tenant keeping a pet. The Decent Home Standard, which currently applies to social housing, will be extended to cover the private rental sector for the first time. And the government claims it will be easier for landlords to evict a tenant who acts antisocially, as it broadens the list of disruptive activities. But it must be matched, says a group representing landlords, with a more efficient court system to cope with the new evictions process.
Well, I'm very pleased that the Secretary of State has given clear and comprehensive grounds for repossession in terms of landlords being able to manage antisocial behaviour, rent arrears, moving back in and wishing to sell the property. But the devil will be in the detail on some of this stuff, and it is so important that whatever the changes that are forthcoming, that the court service receives the investment that it needs so that it is able to deal with the flow of cases and deal with them in a different way than they have been before.
As for Anya Dar, she's being evicted, she says, because the landlord wants to sell. She'd face the same under the new regime. But she and her husband live in Budleigh Salterton in East Devon. They rely on a state pension and say they're finding it impossible to find another affordable property to rent in the area they now call home. And that, for them, remains the biggest unresolved issue of all. And what would your message be to the government hailing this as a once-in-a-generation set of reforms?
It's wallpaper, honestly. It's just trying to paper over the real fundamental problem of not enough properties and leaving it to the market to look at housing us all. If the government's serious about improving life for renters, we first of all need more rentable property, because then the market will adjust a bit. It's the scarcity of it that's pushing the price up beyond what people can afford.
The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, described the reforms today as a step in the right direction, but added that for a Tory promise dating back to 2019, it could have happened sooner.